What's up? Happy Easter. How y'all doing? Yeah. Oh my God. Who's here? My knees hurt. Earl, Ann, Todd. What are you guys doing? Mark, you're all here. What's happening? What have I got going here? Let me see. This week I did a video for this thing. The Brothers AM from Chase Bliss. Of course, derived from the original King of Tone. There it is. Number 4197. Did they really make that many? I don't know. That's the serial number on the back of this one. But anyways, got some of my settings on there from way back in the day in little yellow tape. So this guy, basically kind of like the two channels of this guy, except a little more configurable. And some more options with the three-way clipping switch there. So you can kind of change the tone of the channels on the fly. And then you can also store presets. That's pretty cool. So if you like, channel 1 and 2 knob settings, you're like, yeah, that sounds great. I love that. Then you can store it on this side of the switch. You can have your two sounds. And then on the other side of the switch, you can have two. I think I'm tired. I'm not explaining this very well. Go to the other side, and you can have, I didn't know how to explain it in the video. It's like, to be honest, it's like you get a switch that has presets, and you can preset the sound of each channel. So when the switch is over to the left, turn this on, you get a certain sound out of each channel. Now you can store another preset over here, this side, all the knob settings, right? Kind of like two presets where both channels are stored in each preset. Put it in the middle, it's the current knob's active mode. Yeah. So you could have a setting of both channels for your country gig and a setting of both channels for your rock gig. And then a settings on the fly setting in the middle. Hopefully that makes sense. It's not like MIDI presets, like where you can store like a gajillion. You basically get the two presets. But to complicate things, there is MIDI, where you can actually like assign the knobs to do things via MIDI continuous controller and things like that. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh God, I have a real desire to make sense. I want everything to be logical, and when things aren't logical, I'm a little like Dr. Spock or Mr. Spock. Not doctor. He wasn't a doctor. Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not an engineer. Okay. Well, I better go over to you guys here because so far I'm sucking here. Not making sense. Spencer, there is a full-size Plexitone for sale locally. I'm thinking of grabbing. Those are cool. It is a really, really, really good sounding pedal. The original Plexitone was one of the best Marshall in a box pedals, just with this one little caveat is that it wants to go into a certain sound, which is a neutral sound. So if you run it into, say, it sounded pretty good into a Sir Badger, which was not like ultra neutral, but not a super bright amp. If you go into, say, a Fender or something with a bright cap on it, it really doesn't sound very good into that. But if you go into a Fender with a bright cap clipped, it'll sound quite good. If you go into something like a Marshall, like Plexi channel 2, the neutral channel, the kind of dark woolly one that doesn't have a lot of mid scooped out of it either, really good into that, or really good into an AC30 normal channel. Really good. Because it's kind of a preamp at the end of the day. It's got a real tone shaped kind of sound to it. So it's almost like the more neutral a sound, you're almost like if you're running in, like, I've never tried this, but I wonder if you ran right into a tube power amp, what it would sound like. Maybe that's why I liked it a lot into a Vox normal channel, because that's basically a gain stage going into a power amp. There's not a lot of shaping going on with the Vox. The Vox normal thing is just like there's almost nothing to it, really. Tube gain stage into power amp, really. So it seems to work well into stuff like that. Yeah. So nothing with a bright switch on. really, big bottom end, big crispy top end. And it doesn't really sound like a plexi. It sounds more like a modded plexi that's like got more gain and kind of got some grind going on and some extra, stuff happening. Yeah. Really good pedal though. I liked it a lot. You can hear me use one. There's these videos of me playing with Steve Stevens and Sebastian Bach at the Iridium in like 2010 or 11. And if you find those videos on YouTube, like I'm playing Hop for Teacher in one, for instance, and there's some other songs on there as well. But that's what I'm using is the Plexitone into a Sir Badger 30. Yeah. Okay. Okay, what else we got here? Yeah, my niece heard saying something about PDX. I don't get it actually. Misanthrope. I don't get it actually. You're gonna have to spell it out for me. I hate stuff like that where I can't quite figure it out and then I feel stupid. Have you tried Carl Martin Spring Mini Pedal? Is that like a mini spring reverb? I haven't. I'll tell you what though, I do have this here, which is, I can show you this. Haven't plugged it in yet, but it's the Spring King Jr. from Dan Electro. This is a spring reverb. I can hear the spring rattling. You can't, but maybe you can. The spring is the thing. So there's this one that you can get as well. It's just got a reverb and a tone. Little baby spring. Pretty cool. You can kick it, I assume, and it'll go boom. Oh, Braxall says, I've got 2 Analog Man King tones. Do I need the Brothers ones? Does it really sound as good as the original? I haven't directly A-B'd them. It does sound familiar to me, though, and all that low gain. I really like the lower gain stuff that the King of Tone does, like that kind of buffering, boosting, just bigger thing that it does. If I had a King of Tone, or if I was to recommend something to Analog Man, actually, about like maybe to make a cool alternative voicing, it would be to have a bass cut. Because I find that when the gain gets up on them, that they can be quite thick, which is part of the sound. That's probably the sound that a lot of people like about them. It's not really a Marshall in a box or anything like that, but I like that sound, obviously, as you know. Yeah, so I would recommend having kind of a something to find, like a tight, control, kind of like you see on a Friedman BEOD or something like that. Tight control for both the overdrive and the distortion or hard clipped modes would be really cool, I think, on that pedal. Give it another character that it doesn't have right now. But anyways, it definitely does all the other, like the low gain stuff, at least by memory. I haven't plugged it in right next to the other one, but I assume it's exactly they were going for that, and Chase Bliss is pretty smart, so it's pretty darn similar. It does really sound good though. All right. Saturday Live and an iced, or Sunday Live. Sorry, it's not Saturday Live. It's never been called that. Sunday Live with Pete and an iced coffee. That's what I got today. Oh, God, delicious. Required. Needed. Have you tried a Bossy's new compressor pedal? Looks very similar to the Bogner Harlow. No, I haven't. Harlow was a nice pedal. Is that a compressor? The Harlow was a compressor. I think that's the pedal that I did in my video for the video for the Harlow. I think is where my song "In Good Company" came from. Started out as a video demo for the Bogner Harlow. Really, really good sounding compressor, as I remember. Kind of like a vibey, like compressor boost almost. Yeah, I haven't checked out Abasi, so. Would there be use for a boost in front of an amp that has an onboard boost already? Well, if it's different sounding, like for instance, a Rangemaster doesn't sound like a clean boost. So if you're many times a boost in an amp is just a pad. So like, just so you know, like on the input, if it's got a boost, many times all they're doing is padding down a gain stage in the amp so that it's not as gainy. And then you push the boost in and it takes that pad out. So now you get more gain out of the, it's a very, very simple way to do a kind of a different voicing and a boost in an amplifier. And then generally it's going to be fairly neutral, But so like on a PT100, for example, without giving too much away, I mean, that's kind of what's going on with the crunch switch on channel 1 of a PT100 or any OD amp. But then the boost in a PT100 is not that. That's actually a separate MOSFET, tuned gain stage in front of the whole amplifier. So different ways to go about it. And they both sound different. So even in my amp, I've got two boosts technically, but they both sound different because they're implemented differently. I really love something like I was thinking about it the other day, like the Unit 67 that's still on my main board. Really adore that. It just sounds like, I don't know. It's got that range master control. It's got a clean boost, but then it's also got bass and treble, and then it's also got a range master which adds snarly mids, and a compressor that you can kind of just use a little. When you combine sort of clean boost, a little bit of EQ, the range master mixed in a bit, and a little compression, oh man, is that ever a great sound. So like that's not a sound I can get just by boosting my amp. It's like it's just got a different character to it that I really love. Nigel from Sir, he works with Sir, and he's our guy in Europe. He lives in the UK. He saw me play with Classic Rock Show in London, I think, on the last tour, and we were playing a Queen song that I played the solo on. And he said, "Man, that tone was the best tone all night." And I was playing my Sir Aura, so it's like Les Paul style guitar. On the bridge pickup, but with that Unit 67 mixed in front of the dirty channel on my amp. And I only do that a couple times in the night where I'll use it, and it's got the snarly, a little bit of range master thing. So for Brian May, it's nice to get the mids. And he was like, that tone was so good. And it's like, yeah, that's the one thing that was different, with that particular tone compared to just about everything else I was doing that night was the Unit 67. So it's a really great pedal if you haven't seen one. I've been using it for years now. Do you know the release date for the new Shure SL15? I think it's quite soon. I mean, I think they're going to be getting out there by easily by the summer. I think they're working on it right now, I believe. So I don't know a date though. Can't quote you a date, but I think soonish should be out. Their goal by showing it at NAMM and stuff was to have it out pretty soon. It wasn't to it wasn't going to be a year away or anything like that. It was like we can get it out within months. So it should be pretty soon. I know that's not the exact answer you're looking for, but I'm not really a super up on stuff like that or authorized to say. And even if I was, I wouldn't know. Sorry, Pete. Folks, please don't forget to throw Pete a like. God, my brain is slow today. That's about 100. There's about 140 of us here and only 33. It helps the algorithm. Thanks, Eston. Appreciate that. Yes, please hit the thumbs up on the channel or on the video or on the whatever. Okay. Dan here from Minnesota. Good to see you. Do you have any Firebirds? Great question. I broke out one of mine today and forgot how killer it sounds. They're really cool. I did a lot of recording with I always get them mixed up, reverse or non-reverse. I think it's reverse if it's the Gumby one, right? The kind of like, not the one you see so often. The Gatemouth Brown looking one. Not the Johnny Winter one. But so that one, a friend of mine had one with 2 P90s in it. And man, that guitar, I don't know if it was I guess it's just a combination of everything, but those P90s in that mahogany slab were just like great for solos. So we cut a lot of solos on that guitar because it just had this great mid-range voice that would cut through a mix. It was really cool. And the band I was in the early 90s. Now my only experience with the kind of more commonly seen, Firebird shape, the non-reverse, I guess, I got one around 2000, 99, 2000, and I was a Gibson endorser then. And they got me one that had been, I think it was like Little Stevens or something, and he gave it back or didn't like it or something. I don't know what. But anyway, it was I think it was Pelham Blue, or maybe like a more like a icy blue, like a lighter blue. Maybe it wasn't Pelham. It was a lighter metallic blue. And it was a real deluxe one with like 3 mini humbuckers and the vibrola and all that. And I thought that is the most badass looking guitar. It just has this vibe. It looks so cool. I got it and I took it to a gig and I played it on one show. And man, I just felt like this is like driving a truck after playing on Les Paul. It just felt like, you know what I mean? Like compared to a sports car or something, it just felt like a big slab and everything was kind of left, like the way it hung on the body. It was all like more than an Explorer. I thought it would be similar to an Explorer, but it wasn't. It felt like over here. Like, so when you're playing an F chord, your hand was way over here. And I just didn't bond with it. And I thought, I don't think this thing is for me. And so I gave that guitar back. And in return, instead of that one, I got this one. And this became one of my main guitars and still is really for the next, I mean, I've had this guitar for 25 years. And it, all the wear on it, all that on the back and everything is from real abuse. It's had a headstock repair. You can see actually in the light there, the crack. See the light? You can see where it was repaired. It split all the way through the headstock. Went over one day on a stand. I've told the story before, but it was at a Chris Cornell rehearsal, and I backed into it. It just kind of teetered on the stand and went over and poof, hit the ground, and the headstock broke on carpet. So it wasn't very dramatic the way that it broke. It was like really anticlimactic too. Because I always said this is the guitar that, I used to hold it out, and Chris Cornell would like grab the strings and he'd pull them right off the guitar. And we'd sometimes one at a time we'd break them, or sometimes he'd grab 3 at a time and just rip them off the neck. And it kind of became, it was fun. It was sort of like part of our show. But so we really abused it. And it was really my main guitar when I was playing with Chris Cornell, at least on Soundgarden material. It just sounded like it's got a real deep tone to it. It's not light. It's probably close to 10 pounds. And it just had a nice bass and clarity at the same time. Tried a lot of pickups in this guitar. Right now it's got Thornbuckers for a number of years, probably since, I don't know when. I think it's a Thornbucker Plus in the bridge and a regular one in the neck. And it sounds really good right now, so I have no desire to change them. But for a while there was a guy that was around for a bit named Will Boggs, and I had his pickups in it. That sounded really good, actually, with that particular set. It sounds great now, too. Totally happy with it. Just noticing the alignment of the high E is pretty far away from the neck pickup pole piece. Guess that happens. Almost looks like it needs a narrow spacing pickup in the neck. I had the guy that made the nut for it the last time. Maybe he cut it kind of narrow on purpose because I probably told him I didn't want the high E too close to the edge. But anyway, great guitar. And this is the one that I got for that Firebird instead of the Firebird. And it was a good decision. Ended up being a great tool, that guitar, and it's still with me. I have a one-off show, actually. It's kind of like a private thing coming up in a week or so, and that's going to be one of the guitars I take on it because it's kind of a Les Paul gig. Just, when some gigs are like, yeah, that's the right guitar to play on this show. So, yeah. Do you prefer smaller 20 to 40 watt amp heads or 100 watts your go-to? I use 100 watt live now mainly, but I'm not opposed to smaller ones at all. The PT15 I used on the road for a few years with Classic Rock Show, and did, that was my only amp really on stage, and it was good. I mean, I probably play a little louder than that now, just a little, not a lot. It was kind of like maxed, and then now I've got the 100 watts dialed back, and 2 of them, so it's like I've got a bigger rig now on stage. But but it was good, the PT-15, and you can totally get away with that. And there's lots of good smaller amps these days. PT-15, those little Friedmans, like that little JEL, they've got a very big sounding power section in them for their size. That's kind of you wouldn't think that they would be so bold, but they are. And but you can't really play that loud on stage in a lot of places these days, anyway. So this kind of is what it is. I almost forgot. I went to bring up. I went to AC/DC the other day. Speaking of loud guitars, it was awesome with the Rose Bowl. So we can talk about that if you want to. But my next amp is going to be a 50, at least initially. And I think 50 to 60 watts is a nice, like for me, because I like dirty amps and, I like them to grind up a bit and all that. And a Marshall 50 on stage is like pretty loud if it's not attenuated a little bit, I've played my Marshall 72 50 watt there at a club once. And it was a little too loud for everybody, I think, but it sounded great. Didn't take an attenuator that night. Maybe I should have. In our JEL20 review video, our JEL or mine, you mentioned you had a Marshall cab with blackbacks. Do you have IRs for sale? I think you mean. I sort of do, yeah. It's not that exact cabinet, but it's the same, basically. Same speakers in a different cabinet. I have a Dyne IR package with 2 notes. So if you get the 2 notes wall of sound plug-in, or now Genome, I guess, I think they're both compatible with, yeah. If you buy my pack from them, my blackback cab, I've got another cabinet. It's an old Blockhead cabinet for those that remember Blockhead amps, and they made cabinets as well. And so it's a 1960B 68 reproduction, like perfect reproduction of an old Marshall cab, the right wood and bracing and everything's the same. And in that cab, I have exactly the same speakers that are in my main Marshall cab in the other room, same era and everything. They're old blackbacks, so it's the same sound, really. It's that sound. Yeah, you can check out those Dyne IRs and stuff and get them from 2 Notes. Yeah. All right, Timmy, what's up, man? How are you? Tim Brown, famous drummer from Classic Rock Show. Nice to see you here, dude. I'll see you. Yeah, we're doing a little one-off thing for a race of some sort that's on the Isle of Man coming up at the end of May. That's right before I head out on tour with the Satch 5 band. I'm going to go to Isle of Man and play this show with Ceres, and then head over and chill in England for a bit, and then head out on tour. Good times. Yep. Chef Jeff says espresso martinis make for a great breakfast. I've never had an espresso martini. I should try it sometime. My favorite bar in LA has a machine that's like espresso martini machine. That's like a serious, no screwing around. So I might have to give that a try sometime there. It's also the only bar in LA that has, no, there's 2. Suntory Highball on tap, Japanese highball, which is just Japanese whiskey and soda. So you would think, oh, well, you can just make that, can't you? Soda water and whiskey? Sort of, but not really, because Japanese soda water that they use in a true Japanese highball is very specific, and it's got smaller bubbles, and it's really good for those that know that've been to Japan. You get a highball, and it's like, man, that's refreshing, delicious drink, and they do it with the orange on top there and everything, and it's like, hell yeah. But anyway, that's my little recommendation is Gold Line Bar in Highland Park. Love it. Great place. Always good tunes. Not really classic rock. It's more like, I would say, R&B and soul and a little bit of rock stuff every now and then, but it's more eclectic and sort of newer, derivatives of R&B and soul. Great. It's just a nice place to go listen to music and sit and just chill and have a nice cocktail. Love it. Goldline Bar. Check it out. I've never used a compressor, says Arthur. Well, you're a dynamic fellow, aren't you? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay, what else? What else? Would you suggest 2 notes Opus or Boss IR200 to use with a power amp for live use? So you're saying I need to know a little more about the rest of the rig. It sounds to me like you want to send IRs to the PA, but have a power amp with a cabinet on stage. Is that right? Either will do a good job, man. The Opus has a little more going on than the IR200. Doesn't Boss make though a pedal that also has modeling in it that also can just be IRs? I think they do. I'm trying to remember the name of it. The IR200, I think, is just IRs, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check here to make sure that I'm not saying something that ain't true. Boss IR200. Oh no, it does have amps in it. I'm glad I checked. Okay, it is the one. So it's got yeah, it's got the Boss sort of Cosm, I think, or whatever amp models in it, and then ability to host IRs. You don't have to use the amp models, but you can if you want to. And then Opus is a similar product. You know what? I'm not really that familiar with the IR200. The Opus I did a review of, and I was quite pleasantly not surprised, but it's like I was ready to be, I don't know why, but I guess it was their first foray into amp modeling, and I was ready to be kind of underwhelmed. And actually, they were really good. I thought the amps in it. It's kind of a limited amount of amps. There's like, maybe there's more now. It wasn't like a ton, but I was like, this thing sounds good. Like, actually, like the amp models in it are pretty legit. Like the SLO, and I was like, it's actually really great sounding. So that I can totally vouch for. The IR200, I don't really know the amp models as much, and it might be a thing kind of like everything where it's like, oh, you got your neural people over here and your Axfex people over here, and some prefer the amp models in one, some prefer the other. So, but yeah, I guess there's a lot of crossover there, and I would say they are two sort of competing devices for sure. Yeah. And I assume you want to use them to send IRs to a PA. Oh, okay. So you want to maybe now that I see what you're doing, yeah, you might want to run into a power amp and then play through a cab. I don't know. I'd have to, or like a power amp and a. Tell me a bit more about what you want to do. Do you want to run into like a full range thing? Do you want to send IRs to the PA? Full range flat response cab, or what is it that you're trying to do exactly? What's up with those Fender bass breakers? I've never heard these amps till a few days ago. I have the 45 watt being delivered this Tuesday. That is another one that I don't have a hell of a lot of experience with, but I am somewhat familiar with. So let's look at, I think it's a guitar amp, right? Called the bass breaker, which is, yeah. These are the ones I was thinking about. So 15 watt, 112. Do they make them in different? Yeah, they make a 30 watt too. So like, what is the story on these? Like, were they sort of Bassman derived? Oh, are they discontinued? Because I just went to a page at Fender bass breaker. There it is. Bass breaker fitted amp cover. It's not a guitar. Why is it? Their website is freaking out on me. I don't know if they make them anymore. Maybe they discontinued them because it's not popping up. I don't think they're making them anymore. So maybe it was a thing they made for a little while and not now. So I don't have a hell of a lot of perspective. Sorry. That's where we're at on that. Thorn was not helpful. What else here? In your I already did that. JL 20. Have you checked out the exotic AC booster version 2? Only the original. I never really got into the original. It sounded really soft to me. The original RC boost, though, great clean boost pedal. Yes, the RC booster is epic, like really nice, kind of that boost, but with Taylor DQ that you can, bass and treble, right? Really, really good sounding. AC, I bought one. I was like, I wanted to love it, and I was like, just one of those ones that was like, I don't know, it's not really for me. It sounded very overdrive pedal to me, and the thing about me is I tend to like amp distortion. So, that dynamic big friggin' thing. Pedals to me that sound like pedals is never something that I'm, unless it's stacked like for a reason, like a tube screamer into an already dirty amp or whatever. It makes sense to me. Just the AC, I was like, I don't know, what do I do with this thing, So it was one of the original sort of boutique drives, though, that's for sure. Back when the craze began, maybe 2020. It's probably been out for 20 years at least. What pedals would I recommend using to achieve a distorted tone, crunch lead tone with a Fender Super Reverb? Well, when I think of the Super Reverb as Sir Riot for sure. I'll tell you why a Riot works good is because that's John's. John has a Fender Super Reverb, like a mid-60s one, and he likes to run it sparkly clean with the bright on, and that's kind of how he tuned in the Riot, I think, was for that tone, I think. He likes that Fendery clean, and then you hit the drive, and it's the Marshall drive, right? And so that means that like a Riot actually works quite well, unlike a Plexitone. A Riot works quite well into a amp with a bright cap. So yeah, definitely a Sir Riot would work good. A BEOD would probably work okay for sure because you've got the control to tame the high end. The presence control is really like this massive filter where you can turn down the top end and the treble to some degree on it. It's quite tailorable to different, core amp tones. Another thing I really like into that for a little bit more sophisticated sound and less hard rock or whatever is the Zen Drive. Zen Drive into a Fender clean is supposed to do the Dumbly thing, and I really actually like that sound. I think I brought it up maybe last week, but the sound on my song 10th Street, the solo on 10th Street, is my 335 into a Zen Drive into a my Bassman head, which isn't like light years worlds apart from a Super Reverb. That's what like Robin Ford when he tours, I think, and can't have his Dumble there, he uses a Zen Drive into something like a Super. Yeah. Ever try SL68 with Greenback 75? I don't know. I really like SL68 and greenbacks, but a greenback 75 is kind of G12H30-ish, and you're not far off there. So, and that's kind of a speaker that was commonly used with Plexis at G12H30. Just a different sound. I'm sure, without trying it right now, I'm sure I would prefer it to a Vintage 30. I think for distorted rock, I would probably still like a greenback better because it's that classic thing that I just love. Whenever I hear a 30-watt selection with it always is a little harder and bigger sounding, which isn't necessarily a bad thing for everything. That could be the right sound for some things. It's just I always like the way the greenbacks kind of tame a plexi, if that's the right word, because it's still wild. But they do a thing where they kind of rein it in a little bit volume wise and stuff because they're less efficient. And I just like the sound of them, that kind of, that sort of hazy distortion they do. Have you ever thought of having Sir make your own Explorer body configure signature? I'm not sure it's something that they would want to do. They haven't really done guitars like that. And just to be quite honest, I think John tries to avoid things that are potentially, litigious, which makes a lot of sense because why? It's like and things like V's and Explorers and anything that Gibson's done can kind of get you into trouble. So it's like he'd rather come up with his own shapes that are like, how the Aura is a slightly different shape, or when it comes to the sort of more this is just patent stuff, but when it comes to more traditional, like the fendery shapes, they never protected their body shapes in the same way that Gibson did. So there's something to that as far as like why you see people, why it's easier for them to go after companies that do things like Explorers and those shapes, and certainly Les Pauls. So but anyway, I digress. I just think that it's maybe not really what they do, and they don't do as like, they're more bolt-on necks generally speaking. So to me, an Explorer is a set neck guitar. Like, it's kind of weird to have unless you're Eddie Van Halen kind of doing it that way, or a Star with a bolt-on neck, and it's like, then it's cool to me. But like an Explorer with a bolt-on neck, it's just kind of weird. It kind of reminds me of Hondos or something when I was a kid. It's like that. It's the wrong body shape for a bolt-on or something. Like I say, unless you're Eddie Van Halen, it's got a Strat headstock on it and it's painted crazy or something, then it kind of makes sense. He did it with Stars more, never an Explorer. But he might have had one Explorer body with a bolt-on. Now that I think about it, I seem to remember that picture where he's got the axe or whatever. Doesn't he have like the scythe or something in some picture? And then I think there's an Explorer body in that with a, But anyway. So yeah, probably not. Something that I do think should happen, though, this is just like an aside that I think would be really cool, just my guitar nerd kind of, whatever, is if Ibanez and Gibson were able to get together and do some sort of licensed deal to make the original Destroyer. I think that would be really neat. Like, if they could somehow put their heads together to do. I know EVH has one, and it's pretty cool looking and stuff like that. But I kind of mean, like, I think it'd be neat to do it the way that Van Halen 1 was recorded. This is super nerdy stuff, but the guitar was white then, and there's a few pictures of it. Eddie's Destroyer. Let's see if we can find one. Eddie Van. Like the picture that you see when he's recording at Sunset Sound. Here we go. This is what I'm talking about right here. I'm just gonna take a picture of a picture, and then I'll show you. Like, I totally love the way this guitar looks. Sorry, get back to the screen here. See, and you're not going to be able to see the detail of the knobs, but it's got white. They're not speed knobs, but they're kind of a certain, and that's the way the guitar looked when Van Halen 1 was recorded. And I just love that. And I just think it'd be really cool to, like, if there was a way that, I know it's just basically a white Explorer, but if it probably said nothing on the headstock too. I'm sure the Ibanez was gone because it's painted white, right? So, but I think you could put Ibanez in a black logo, in the old Ibanez logo, and it's got a white guard, right, with black. You can see it's white 3-ply with black. I don't think you can see that. It's not coming through on the resolution or whatever. But maybe if I turn down the I don't even know if anybody cares about this stuff, but can you see it there now? Yeah, so you can see the black. So that's cool. And then check out the knobs, those white knobs. I think that is friggin' cool looking. So anyway, I just think it'd be cool if they did if everybody was able to just maybe even sorry, I just got to send a message right now. I will check it out ASAP. Thank you so much. Something cool. Gotta check it out after the show. Okay, what else we got here? Let's see. Awesome demos this week on the Tone King pedal and Brothers pedal. I have a question. Oh yeah, I did the Tone King too. I almost forgot to mention that. Thanks for reminding me. Really nice sounding pedal, right? Talk about a great, like, sort of, you need something Fendery, but sort of maybe a little Marshall or Tweed every now and then too. Really great. And then that vibrato or tremolo that's built in. And what else in it? The reverb. Man, it's a good sounding pedal, honestly. That Tone King pedal. Very useful. I mean, I could see it being a great studio tool for a lot of people. Great live tool. Anyway, very good. Have a question for how to power or power supply. Friedman IRX needs 800 milliamps. Yeah. Probably with something like a it's a question for Dave, but I think they could probably make you like a Kiox one does 400 or 600 milliamps per. I'm just looking. I have one on my desk here. It's got 600 per outlet. There's probably a way to do a cable where you can use two on something like a Kiox or maybe another power supply, whatever you've got, where you can tie together two of them and then have it go to one cable, and it would be enough to power that pedal. But that's a question for Dave. So just send him an email at racksystems@yahoo.com and tell him your specific setup if you have a certain type of power supply, and he'll tell you if he can do it. Maybe he could even make you a cable and send it to you or something, for your power supply. Yeah. Or maybe there's something that's commercially available you could order. Probably, seems like you can order anything these days. Let's see what else we got here. We're talking about Firebirds. E-Barge says, I bought one in 76, the Johnny Winter type. That's cool. The Johnny Winter type. Non-reverse, I think that's called, right? Do you ever record the rehearsal sessions you do and listen back to hear any parts that need practice? Oh, for sure. Or if it's like something like, I know I'm not going to remember this later. Like we just come up with an ending and it's like, okay, that's the ending. And then you move on to like 800 other songs you're working on. It's like, can we just do that one more time? And I'll put my phone down and record it and then note it in my notes on the phone. Like, here's the way this is the finished ending. So that, a month later before your gig, you can go back and review it or whatever. And it's great to do that stuff. Yeah. Recording and listening to yourself is super valuable in almost any, like whether you're practicing, whether you're, sometimes I like to video myself, like, and see, like, do I look like an idiot playing this part? Or is there a way that I could do it where it's like more relaxed looking or something? Because you know what I mean? Like if you've never seen yourself play certain stuff, it's like, God, I look uncomfortable. Is the way that I can settle into this better? So you learn a lot just by watching as well as listening, Yeah. Anyways, looking for an affordable overdrive from Metal, preferably with a built-in noise gate. Man, honestly, the Metal Zone Waza is pretty great for Metal. If you've just got a clean amp and you need Metal Zone, it's like the Waza pedals across the board from Boss are all stellar, and the Metal Zone Waza pedal, killer. Now, I'm not sure there's a gate in it. Gate, I would recommend the 5150 pedal from MXR and EVH. It's got a gate, and that pedal's great. It's basically like the blue channel of his 5150 amp. And that's what they designed it to be like. And it sounds really good. Yeah. It'll get you a little more true sort of Marshall in a box tone as well, if that's what you want. What's my take on relic guitars? If they're done right, I love it. I'll give you an example because I've got a couple here that I think are really good. I mean, let's look at a couple old guitars first. So this is a fun topic, actually. Here's my old Telly, 66. So this Telly has been played a lot. You can see the type of wear, the little bit of discoloration through to the fuller plast. Because Fenders, although they were lacquer, they still used this coat of stuff that was poly, and so that's what that white stuff is there, the fuller plast. Now, I don't know how much detail you're going to be able to see, but this guitar, the checking is amazing. Maybe you can kind of see the checking. It's really fine, and it's all over the guitar. It's completely checked. So I don't know if it's coming through or not, but maybe. But anyway, the subtle nature of this is what old guitars look like these little chips and, this stuff. Like it never looks like it got hit with a bandsaw or something. And also the dirty kind of, you know what I mean? Like you know. It's like that really light kind of wear. The headstock on this guitar, I don't know how the logo got partially worn off, but it did. It's got that. I have two Fenders with the logo in the weird place, like my old Strat and my T. Maybe they were made by the same guy or something like that. Who knows? You know, or the same woman. Like whoever was putting the decals on, you know, was they were in that mode where they were putting them further down the headstock, you know. So, but you can see I don't know if you can see the checking, but it's subtle, you know. So anyway, there's that guitar. Similar with my old Strat here. Similar wear through to the fuller plast on the arm wear. Now, when I got this guitar, this was small. Like, actually, when I saw a picture of it when I first got it, I was like, oh man, I put a lot of wear on that guitar. Not like Philip Sace does, but you know, his are like down to the wood everywhere. But you know, it's got a lot more wear than when I got it. Now, a lot of this stuff was on it. Like, I wondered, how did they get all this? Like, did they have heavy chains or something they wore that just chipped away at the guitar? Because it's got these marks on it and stuff like that. And then the belt wear and stuff. And that's going to be partially mine, you know. But a lot of these other chips, somebody was obviously leaning it up against amps and stuff over the years. But all these kind of fine chips and stuff are you know, pretty cool, right? So so that's the 64 Strat. Now let's take a look at, I think that this guitar was done, where the heck is it? My what did I do with, there it is. You know something's there and then you can't see it. Hate that. Oh, this guitar, I've got, not this guitar, but this guitar stand is it's this foam that keeps on lacquer, it keeps coming off. It's like disintegrating. So it's got these black marks on it. But anyways, I think Sir did a beautiful job on this guitar on the Relic, because I think I showed them all that stuff. I was like, hey, I don't want one that's got the big, where it looks like this is all gone, the finish and everything, you know? And so they did this so nicely, I think, like with the little, it's very similar in the sort of the chips and stuff, and it's super checked as well. That doesn't really come through, but maybe it does. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it does. But all the sort of fine little, you know, chips and stuff like that, I think they did a really nice job on this guitar. And then I toured this guitar, so it saw a year of touring, so it got some marks on it and stuff as well. So I think that's really nice, like that kind of aging, really great. A company that does really great aging is Rock and Roll Relics. I love their aging, and incidentally, if you needed something done, there's this woman, and she goes on Instagram by Finished by Fox, and she works for, is it Cower or Nick Huber? Can't remember the guitar company she's finishing for now, but her relic work, because she does a lot of the Rock and Roll Relics stuff too, is amazing. Now, I don't know if she learned that technique from Rock and Roll Relics or if she's the one that's always done it or what, but she knows how to age guitars, and they look like really like that fine kind of, they're a little more aged than even generally than what I'm showing you here, but let me find her page. I just love that. I'm really picky about this stuff, like the in particular, you know, the aging and stuff. And so let me just find a Rock and Roll Relics that's an example of, okay, here's one that she's done. So I love this stuff. See that detail right there, where that looks so cool to me, like the way that was done, and really realistic, and you know, that kind of detail is what I love, you know. And just this stuff too around the bottom, the fine chips and all that stuff, where it's not too crazy. I don't mind whenever I see one like that. What I don't like is when I see the obvious, like, you know, where it looks like it got hit with a, like I say, with a belt sander or something, you know, because that just doesn't, I don't know, that doesn't look good to me. So I don't mind that kind of light aging that's really realistic. I'm just picky. I just want it to look like an old one, you know. What do you guys think? Are you guys into it, or are you know, is, you know, a good guitar is a good guitar is a good guitar. So if it's cool and it speaks to you and it looks cool, you know, the aging, whatever you like, you know. But that's just my opinion of what I like when it comes to that stuff. And I don't mind, because there is the thing with, like, I'm not afraid to scratch that guitar, and if it's aged like that now, I'll put it down. And, you know, there's something about it where it does kind of take the heat off, you know, and you can kind of beat it up a little more, and it's part of the thing, you know, and it's kind of fun. So yeah. Chris says Firebirds are a little more like an SG for bridge position. Yeah, for those just joining, we were talking about Firebirds earlier. I was talking about how the, you know, it feels like it's over here on the body, but yeah, exactly. SGs can feel a little bit left, you know, the way that they sit. Yeah. 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 Okay. What else? What else? What else? What's that Les Paul weigh? My black Les Paul, probably around 10, I think, something like that. Are there any punk rock guitarists that have influenced? Well, I mean, the Sex Pistols was like, when I heard that record, never mind the Bullocks record, I was like 10. And, you know, not only just the attitude and the lyrics were like, oh my God, what's he singing about? You know, and then like the guitar sound on that record is amazing. And it just was, yeah, that spoke to me huge, you know. And the Ramones, and I always felt like sort of like, I felt like the Who in some way were sort of proto hard rock. I mean, the Who was like its own entity, I guess, but they also were like obviously sort of in some ways kind of punky. And I mean, the mod thing was almost like, in some ways, wasn't it sort of pre-punk? I mean, when I think of rockers, there's like rock bands were not really punk at all, you know, but the Who were kind of like pre-punk, you know, to me. Yeah. Yeah. And it just the attitude and everything. So, you know, I always loved that. And then, you know, like, I think like, now the line's blurred. It's like, it's like you got a band like Green Day or something, and they're like punk, obviously, like from the beginning, they're kind of like punk band, but they also are sort of just like a rock band too. So it's like there's less division there. They're like, because, and then they've also, you know, they have songs that are decidedly not punk, right? So, but I guess the attitude was punk from the beginning. But I like them. And so, but I would say the Sex Pistols were like the first thing that I heard that was like, oh my God, you know. I liked it. It just spoke to me. This is at the same time I was listening to Who and the Beatles and all kinds of other stuff, you know, that I was getting into. And then, you know, metal and hard rock and stuff. But I loved that Sex Pistols record. You know, it was awesome. And I heard it like really early on. It was like 1982 or something when so it was only been out for a few years by the time that I got to it. And I was definitely knocked out by it. What's the Thornbucker regular and plus combo sound like? Great. Kind of like, if you're not sure, like if you're like, what should I get? I would recommend that. But it's just a, you know, a spicy P90 in the bridge, but not like a hot pickup by any means, but like a little more, you know, like a mid hot for P90. Not even hot, because it's not even 9K. It's like 8.7. So it's just like a healthy PAF. And then a low output, low wind for the neck, which I love, because it's like you just don't need all that output in the neck, generally speaking. It'll just get darker. And so I love the clarity on it, because it's almost got a single coil like clarity. It's not single coil, but it's like, it's perfect for a neck pickup. I don't know how else to describe it. And then the way they blend in the middle and everything is gorgeous. So yeah. Yeah. Yep. Victor says, exactly. I've got a Joe Bonamassa Firebird one, and the first fret is way out there. That's why I didn't buy one back in the 70s. Yeah, it's just a little odd. Like, if it was your thing, if you were Johnny Winter or whatever and you got used to it, oh, it's cool. Like, you can get used to anything, I think. If you play it enough, you know, play it for a week or two. I got used to the Brian May guitar that I borrowed from my friend John, and it was like really like Brian's, like an exact reproduction. And that guitar has this crazy neck on it that's like a 2x4. I mean, the neck is so thick front to back. It's unreal. Only thing that I could compare it to is maybe Jeff Beck Strat, the original one that had the huge neck on it. I've never played anything like it. But after a few days, I was used to it. And it was just like, oh yeah, that's what guitar feels like. And then I went back to my guitar, like my signature guitar, and I was like, oh my God, this feels like pencil thin compared to, because it's just such an unusually large neck. So anyways, I think you can get used to anything. But when you're moving around from guitar to guitar to guitar, like I do on gigs a lot and stuff, it becomes a little more awkward to go to something like the Firebird, you know, where it feels like it's way over here and it's just like not as comfortable. So yeah. I grew up thinking heavy Les Pauls were better. Now I'm all about light guitars. I kind of like heavy ones sometimes. I think for rock guitars, they're kind of cool, or at least like hard rock or metal. At least mine, in my experience, mine has this depth to it that I like. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's like depth. It's like if you take two Les Pauls, actually, if you take my two Les Pauls right here, this one is a R9, 50th anniversary R9. Great guitar, just your basic, historic Les Paul, great sounding, but sorry, put it back on the stand just right here, make sure it doesn't fall. This one, the custom, has more depth to it, almost like you turned up the depth on an amp. It's a little less just sort of like mids and rock, and a little more like big voice. So it has that going on, and it's a cool sound. Why is this stand? What in the hell is going on? Let me see here. I sound like a crotchety old man, because I am. Stand was not standing. Okay, don't move. Wouldn't be unlike that guitar to just fall over and break. It's kind of my superstitious self coming through there. Okay. Ebarge says, I'm a fan. Oh, I got to get to a super chat I just missed. Sorry about that. Another one just popped up there. I'll get them both. Fan of the Mini Recto. Great smaller amp. I haven't tried that one. I only tried the bigger ones. I had a 3-channel rectifier. That's the only one I've owned. But have you tried the Heritage EVH greenbacks? Yes, I have them in a cab in the other room. How do you like them to normal greenback? Pretty cool. They're darker and a little less efficient, so they're a little quieter. Darker, is that the right? I mean, they've got this kind of, they're nice with a plexi, I'll say that. And, Eddie, he liked them. They just have a different thing. I think the regular greenback sounds a little bigger or something. Maybe that's just because they're louder. So that's just my take. But the regular greenback, I sort of settled on as being my preference. But I don't dislike the Heritage one. I thought it was pretty good. You got to kind of be ready for the slightly less efficiency. And you can be like, why does my amp sound quieter? And so, which isn't a bad thing when we're talking about being able to open up the master volume, or even a plexi with no master volume. That Destroyer may be worth the most in my collection. My Destroyer, no, probably my most valuable guitar is my 64 Strat, I would say. When it comes to stuff like that, I would think at this point, old Fenders are just, silly at this point. My next two amps are going to be a Friedman Jake Ely and an EVH Iconic. Good choices for rock and roll. Tell us about the AC/DC show. It was great, man. The guitars were ripping loud, like you know how I'm always like, not enough guitar and drives me crazy. No, this was like, it was great to hear. I saw some people say they were too loud, and I'm like, I disagree with that. I think it's AC/DC is supposed to be about dangerous guitars, and they are not shying away from it. I wouldn't want them any louder. And I like loud guitar. So, but it's great. And drums and bass and everything, man. My buddy Matty killed it on the drums, and Chris Chaney as well on bass. Just, they sound so natural now. When they do all the endings and stuff, if you watch any of this stuff, when they do the, endings, that's just so AC/DC. Like they have it so nailed. the feel and the sound. That's what AC/DC is supposed to sound like. So it's great. Guitar tones were great. Angus's as well as Stevie's. Stevie's tone's terrific now. I kind of in the like first few tours or something, I wasn't as big of a fan, and now I think he sounds like whatever he's using sounds killer. He doesn't play exactly like Malcolm, but it's really good. A lot of it is. I mean, he's a great guitar player. A lot of it sounds close. There's sometimes when he plays a part, and I'm like, it just sounds like it hits a little different than the way Malcolm did it. Because Malcolm, it's just like a very deceptive, like how great he was, and it's almost like you don't notice it until he's gone, right? Which is sad. But Stevie, for the most part, nails it. For the most part, there's a few things like Thunderstruck where he's playing, and I'm going. There's the rhythm part on Thunderstruck is this very specific thing. That's like, to me, it's and it's like relentless, right? Where he's just on the one chord. It's kind of funky. It's like it's got this swing to it, and it's real clean, and it really drives when it comes in. Because you get the playing against that, right? And it's so specific and friggin' cool, like when it happens. And that's the only thing where I'm like a little critical of, like, it's like, yeah, you just want that to sound. But far be it for me. But that's my only. He's great, man, and he sounds amazing. He does this amazing job at it. Maybe I need to go back and maybe he was doing that, and I'm just not hearing it right. But you know what I mean. So, anyways, that's the fascinating thing about nobody can exactly duplicate anybody else, can they? It's like it's a magic thing about playing music, and drummers and bass players, and guitar players and singers. We're all human beings and slightly different, and nobody quite has what anyone else has. It's so fascinating, and it's great. You kind of like, fall in love with people's certain style and the thing that they do. And it's like, we're all individuals, and it's so neat that everybody's got their own little artistic slant, Brian was great, man. I mean, he's having so much fun up there. The poor guy, he struggles with, the high stuff, and we know that. And it's like, but it doesn't really matter to me at this point. It's just like, of course, he's in his mid 70s, and he's doing the best he can with stuff when he was 30 years old, that he did then. And it's just, he's having so much fun. He literally just looks like he's having the most fun out of like anybody playing music. He's a blast up there. He's great. You wouldn't want to see anybody else up there doing that stuff, So anyways, 3J Music says, I've got Pete's cab collection. You mean my Dyne IRs, right? For 2 notes. Very good. Thank you. But speaking of 2 notes, I've got my video coming this week for the Reload 2. I need to finish that. I'm well deep into recording it, and I'll get it done. In short order. That should be my next video that's out. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I've got a couple. I'm gonna go all the way down. I'm way behind the chat, so I'm gonna. Oh man, I'm far behind. Sorry about that. 12, 20, yeah, I'm more than a half an hour, so I need to get down to ask questions again, because I'm gonna miss a bunch of them. My Mesa 212 cab sounds fine at low volume. As soon as I play louder, it sounds very harsh and trebly. Asking if it's a broken speaker. I mean, nothing like your amp. Good question. I guess the thing to do is try a different cabinet that's similar. Does it change like as you're turning it up? You're saying it actually, like the sound of the cabinet itself. That's interesting. I wouldn't. Breaking a speaker is, in something like that's a 212. If you ran a 100 watt through it and really murdered it, I suppose you could damage a speaker if you were really hammering on it. It's possible. But I would try another cabinet and see if it sounds better to you. And if you're definitely, if it, try your amp at various volumes then through that cabinet. If you definitely hear a change at a certain volume, it could be a bad speaker, I guess. Or maybe you just don't like the sound of those speakers once they get up loud enough for you to really hear them work, Possible. You take it to somebody to check out. A good amp tech should be able to diagnose whether or not the speakers are damaged. I have 2 blue Bulldogs and standard selections on a Fender Silverface, and I have the 2 3VM EVM 12. Yeah, those are nice speakers. Big, heavy, very different. Polar opposites from Bulldogs. The EVM 12 and a Bulldog. Super light magnet. Not a lot of power handling, all the way up to 200 watts. Fender have just released a Player 2 modified Strat. Have you tried one and any thoughts? No, I did look at them. Fender sort of, to be fair, they just sort of keep reinventing the wheel, don't they? With like different, there's like, I don't know how many different varieties of Strat you can come out with. Player 2 modified Fender. Let's take a look. I think I saw a green one. Yeah, green. That's kind of cool. Like green with the black pickguard. How's it modified? It's just a 3 single coil jobby. Let's check it out here and see what the modern C neck profile with 9.5 radius, Player 2 noiseless Strat, upgraded electronics. What does that mean? It's just a volume and a tone and a 5-way. Upgraded electronics. All right, whatever you say. The green is kind of cool. I like the green with a black guard. That's pretty good looking. Ooh, black with a pearl guard. Not really a fan of that. That looks like the 90s to me. White with a pearl guard. Let's take a look at the blue with the pearl guard. Ooh. Okay, the tortoise guard with cream pickups, and that looks pretty good on a Sunburst 3-color. Yellow, kind of cool. I sort of like yellow, the yellow one with a black guard, the green one with a black guard, Sunburst with the tortoise shell. Those guitars look nice. Body material, alder. Fingerboard material, maple. Yeah, it's got the noiseless Fender pickup, so probably a good gigging guitar, right? And then they've got the, I see, they make one with a humbucker as well, and a Floyd, and then one with a regular bridge and a Floyd. Yeah, so you can get, okay, let's see what we got here. Well, these look nice. The Floyd ones look cool. Like I say, they keep reinventing the wheel, right? Like I had in 1992, I had this guitar. Not the exact same colors, but it was a Sunburst Strat with a humbucker in the bridge and a Floyd Rose and a rosewood fingerboard. I think it was rosewood. Maybe it was maple. Made in Japan. And was a great guitar. Terrific guitar. So, it's a super Strat, isn't it? Like we've been doing for years. Just kind of different colors and stuff. I don't know. What do you think? Do you like them? Eddie Starr had a Dan Electro neck. Yeah. He had a couple. Yeah. Wasn't there different. Did it always have the Dan Electro? Maybe it did. Akira borrowed that for his ESP. Absolutely, he did. Yeah. That's 100% correct. Okay, some super chats. I got to get to moving down. Here we go. Milt. What's up, Milt? I hope rehearsals with Satch Fire are going great. Love the Sunday Live. Thanks. Yeah, we did a run of rehearsals. It was awesome. That's why I just got a text from Joe actually a little while ago that I gotta check something out. It's exciting. So I'll see it in a minute. But we had a lot of fun. Now Joe's doing a residency with Sammy Hagar out in Vegas. Michael Anthony, Kenny. That's coming up. So he's off doing that. And then Steve is headed to South America, I believe, with Beat. He might already be there. I'm not sure 100%, but maybe not. But anyway, they've got some shows down there. So now we're on a little break for a little bit, and then we'll get back together before the tour and do some more rehearsing and then head out. What a lucky guy I am. I'm so excited. Super excited. Okay. What else we got here? Let's see. Just make sure for the IRX you are not. Thanks for that super chat, by the way, as well. I forgot to Thank you. Just make sure for the IRX you're not using voltage doubler, but a current doubler. That's correct. Different kinds of cables, but readily available. Good advice there. Yeah, that's why I was saying, consult Dave for the right cable. Because whatever's inside them, one of them's going to double voltage and another one's going to double the current, right? Like the wires, and I don't know which is which, but Dave could make you one or suggest one. Greetings. Ages ago, you mentioned a leather jacket brand you liked and had Boda skins. BODA. Boda skins. Beautiful jackets. Very happy with mine. I've never gotten so many compliments on a jacket. I wear that out all the time. People are like, that's a great jacket. They're really good. I bought the 1958 Carina Epiphone just because started with Joe Bonamassa. Had to get the other two. Those are cool. I like them. Epiphones are cool these days. The Epiphone Firebird, by the way, I think is really cool. Like the one pickup, they make them in silver and stuff. That's a badass looking guitar, I would like that just to have, just because it's badass looking. Forget about what I said about it being more difficult to play because it's over here and all that. It's like just a cool, bust it out for a few tunes just because it looks badass. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody says here, Spencer says, you need a current doubler, combine two 500 milliamp outputs from your brick. Yeah. How do you break out of the intermediate level mentally, mentality, and from a practice point of view? I would say playing live with people and really paying attention to them, listening to other players, as opposed to just learning the parts and kind of, getting out there on stage and maybe, having to improvise, playing a lot of shows, and really becoming a person that listens to the other players is what separates intermediate from, like when you can tell that people are really making music together, and when it moves you in a way where everybody's firing on all cylinders, and it sounds like a unit, then it sort of doesn't sound like an intermediate band, right? It sort of starts to sound more like a professional band. That's a kind of an intangible, I know, but that's my advice there. Playing with people and really getting good at listening to them and playing with them, right? Like the details, Let's take AC/DC since we're talking about them, for example. A lot of people think they can play AC/DC because it's easy or simple. Let's say simple, because I don't think it's easy. I think it's simple music. There's not a lot of notes. There's a lot of repetition. But if you want to sound like an intermediate cover band playing AC/DC or a really, really, really good band playing AC/DC, the difference is in the details and how you all listen to one another and how you all hit the dynamics together. So it's paying attention to these little details. Like, for example, when the bass hangs on the root forever, and then it doesn't change until right before the chorus, and then it goes to the third or whatever of the chord, and it does that specific thing, right? Or, the way that the drums hit the crash with the snare on beat 2 or on beat 4, right? Like how that stuff in AC/DC music, the tempos and how everybody hits the riffs to, bong, 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 bum, 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 right? And the drums hit on the specific things. There's syncopation, and then everybody hits on the same thing, right? And it's all that stuff and the builds. Dun, 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 honey, right? On the crash on 2, like all those little specifics in AC/DC. So if you go see a cover band, many times they don't do that stuff. They'll like not play the little things that make it so powerful. But when you go see AC/DC and you look at 80,000 people all going like this, there's a reason that everybody's doing that. Like they have this magic thing, this formula. And I'd love to know where they got it from. like, if was it George Young, like in the early days, that taught them little things like that, because it existed at the beginning. Right from like when you listen to Jailbreak or something, those elements are there. And they were really young. And George was kind of the producer. And I'm wondering if he like musically helped guide or something those little details, like here's what we're gonna do to make this like really rock, it's very interesting to me. But anyway, paying attention to those details is what is going to separate you out of the intermediate level to the professional level. That's what I think. Those little moments, yeah. Catalysmic Converter says, I saw Loudness on that tour, and they were indeed loud but clear. Saw the latest gear of the day with their crew. That's awesome. He was always he had a Jose Marshall back in the day. Great tone. He had great tone. Akira. I've met him once. He was really, really cool. Nice guy. Okay, moving down through the chat here. Yeah, I'm a half hour behind, so I'm going to move down to being about 15 minutes behind, which is right around here. What do we got here? If I was going to redo my pedal board for a large number of pedals and switcher, which one would I use? Well, I love my Musicom Lab switchers, so I'd stick with that, my Mark 6. I'm really into this Fractal VP4. I think it's fantastic, and I would probably be apt to want to integrate it for post effects at this point. I would think, just because of the editing, the workflow and stuff, I think would be great. I haven't used it a ton yet, but I've used it enough to know that it could probably do just about anything I need, like post effects wise. So that would be probably the main thing I would do. Right now, I've got the SD 3000 and the H90, and they're terrific, and I've got great sounds, and I have no intention of changing. But boy, would it ever streamline my workflow to have this one unit that I could just use for all my post stuff. I can do up to 4 effects at a time with it. I would never need more than that, I don't think, in the post path. And I could edit it all on a really easy to use, fast computer editor. So that would be the one thing. And I may go that way. Like, after I like to stick with a board for a year or two. And my current board is, it's been the way it's been for a while now, and it's great. And I like my sounds, and I don't want to get into reprogramming everything and all that, but maybe after this year or something, who knows, maybe I'll go with a VP4 or something on my board as the main sort of post effect. And it wouldn't even be involved with the switcher, it wouldn't be, because I've got a parallel mixer on my board. So I would run the parallel mixer into the VP4. Lately, I've come to realize that even if you have a parallel mixer on your board, because I use the parallelizer from Musicom Lab, you can switch everything on and off in it. So I can switch my dry path on and off, and I can switch each into up to 3 effects on and off. So there's actually no downside, because I could still run in series if I want to. I just turn off the dry path, and then on a particular effect in something like the fractal or whatever, I can just run in series all the way through it and not have it running in parallel, right? And use the mixes on it and stuff. So, for example, if I need to do something like a Leslie sound in stereo, okay, well, now with Leslie, you generally, just the parallel thing is weird, because you got the dry path going through, and then you're mixing in the rotary cabinet sound. That can be weird, doesn't really sound like a rotary cabinet then. It sounds like a dry signal layered with a rotary cabinet. So for that, yeah, maybe, and I do that now, by the way. I mean, I'm starting to do that when I realize that, like, well, I don't have to run on every sound in full parallel. I can actually run in series through the H90 and just enable it per preset to have kill dry off, and then I turn off my dry path via MIDI on my. This is getting really nerdy, but anyway, there's some effects, right? Like EQ. Say you want to make a radically like filtered EQ, like a radio sound, super filtered. Then you want to do it in the post path of your, you can't do that in parallel. because you got to do the whole sound, right? So parallel works great for delays, reverbs, certain modulations and stuff like that, for sure, but not for things like a really processed filtered guitar sound. That you're going to want to be in series. So these are the instances, certain instances when you got to have the series thing. Yeah. Oh, so nerdy. It's unbelievable. Incredible. Okay. I played my Firebird for a while, and it was weird going back to Les Paul. Trying to rotate between Les Paul Strats and Firebirds really makes me focus on my playing. Yeah, can be done. It's just like sometimes it's uncomfortable to move between different scale lengths, different when the guitar sits on your body differently. I'm more used to it now than I used to be. So maybe I wouldn't care about the Firebird now. I mean, I play an SG and all kinds of different guitars live in the Classic Rock Show set, the Destroyer, Frankenstein, and of course all my Sirs, and everything's pretty different. So I don't know. Yeah. I wonder how many guitarists only use one guitar. I don't think I've ever seen Frank Marino with anything other than his SG. Yeah, or Stevie Ray Vaughan, occasionally he'd switch to a different Strat, and it was pretty rare you saw him with anything else. There's those rare pictures you see him with a Les Paul or something. 335, I guess on the cover of Instep, right? But yeah, I mean, he could sound great on anything, but I think he just preferred the Strat for his style, obviously. Robert says, I saw an SG on your Setvai Euro Tour ad. Can you talk about that guitar? That was me playing an AC/DC song with Classic Rock Show. That's where that picture came from. So that guitar was the very first guitar I got before that Black Les Paul that's sitting right there, from Gibson. And it's the one that started my sort of relationship with them, and then also just sort of my setting a precedent about endorsements. And by that I mean, when they got me that guitar, it's just a run-of-the-mill, it was probably $1,000 back then, whatever they cost in the early 90s, run-of-the-mill USA Gibson SG. And they got that to me as a loaner, and I said, I'm going to earn this guitar from you. And I've told this story before, but this is the way that I approach endorsements, and still do, really. I said, I'm going to earn that guitar from you. And I went off and did a whole bunch of television with it, a bunch of, daytime and nighttime television shows. And I recorded them all back then on VHS, because that's what we had. And then I took this VHS tape into the Gibson Artist Relations office here in Beverly Hills. This would be in 99 or 2000. And I brought them the tape, and I said, here's everything I've done with that guitar in the last 6 months after a while. And there was like, good, so maybe 7 TV shows on it or something like that, with me playing the guitar on The Tonight Show and on this show and that show. And Matt was like, wow, nobody's ever done that before. Like, actually, like, that sort of like, here's my, this is what I've done. And I just sort of presented it to them. And that started our relationship. And he's like, you can have that guitar. That's yours. And, because that's good advertising, right? Obviously. And this was pre-internet being a thing, and pre-web forums and YouTube and everything else. So doing, playing on TV was that was one of the only ways that you got exposure back then. So for guitars. Yeah. So what else here? Let's see. My guitars of choice are Yamaha SBG SGs, and they're heavy too. I have a thin body version. Those are beefy. They're cool though. The original Santana guitar, they were neat. Somehow those guitars, like, managed to transcend like because it was obviously kind of an SG copy, but it wasn't an SG because it was so thick and had its own thing going on. And they kind of almost like Ibanez Artist. They were similar too, right? That double cutaway thing. And people played them and they had their own vibe. So, yeah. 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 Okay. Let's see. What else we got? AC/DC has to be loud, makes the concert. Absolutely. I go see a lot of shows these days, and I'm kind of like, the sound, and I'm like, am I going deaf? Like, because I'm like, it just doesn't hit, man. Like I remember, not AC/DC. That was, it almost gives me like, it's like, yeah, it's not me. It's this the shift in the way that people are mixing, and because when I went, you go to the AC/DC show and it's all there, and it's loud, and it's like, wow, it's really loud. Like I actually put in these for a while, AirPods, because 2 hour, like an hour and a half in, you're like, okay, like, and it's like, so these guys have the active noise reduction in them. That's amazing. Like, if you haven't tried these, I'm telling you, man, they are the best thing I have tried so far for a noise reducing active kind of earplug thing. I still really enjoy it. A lot of them I'll put in, I'll be like, yeah, okay. These things I put in, and it's like they just do exactly what you want them to do, at about the volume that you want it reduced to. And they were reducing the volume a lot at AC/DC. Like, I would say it was like 10 or 12 dB or something. But man, does it ever still sound perfectly balanced. And it's enjoyable. Like, I'm still enjoying the music. And then when you take them out, you're like, holy shit, it's loud. But it's really good. So AirPod 2s have that noise reduction, or like, actual volume reduction, but at a exact, they preserve the frequencies and everything better than anything I've tried. I bought a pair of kind of active earplugs recently too. They're pretty good, automatic ones. Jury's still out on them, but they were $500, and I bought them because I'm pretty serious about, like, okay, I want the best thing for doing this right now. I don't know. Pretty good. They've got there's some neat things about them. They have a feature where they will actually boost conversation frequencies, but still reduce everything like 10 or 15 dB. So when you're at a band practice, for instance, you can have these things in active noise reduction. So it's like, it's clear like an in-ear would be, but lower volume, right? And then when you talk in between songs, it's actually boosted, like, so you can hear people very clearly. Kind of a little bit tinny sounding because it only boosts, it's like 2K, like sort of like, vocal or, voice intelligibility sort of EQ. So it sounds a little kazoo-ish when people are talking, but it's very clear. You can hear what they're saying and stuff. And then as soon as you start playing again, the limiter's super fast, and you don't even notice it. And it's just like reduced volume. So they're neat. They have their own thing, but they do like more than these. These are a little more, in the way they do it, it's a little more transparent with the Apple stuff. So it kind of makes sense. I mean, it's Apple. They're brilliant. So yeah. Any opinions on the Who sacking their drummer? Oh, I have so many opinions on that, but I don't even know if I should say them. I just, I mean, man, yeah, I got a lot of opinions, but where do I even start? Do I even want to? They've, first of all, Zach has been on. This is a slightly different. It's not an off-topic issue. I feel like it's the same topic, but it's slightly off-topic, I guess. But he's been on Roland V drums for over 10 years, I think. Maybe not. Maybe like 8 years, something like that. When they started doing shows with orchestras, they definitely at that point went to V drums to avoid the bleed of the drums, I think, into the orchestral microphones. Seeing the Who with an orchestra, that's another issue. Okay, I get it, but like, kind of like, I just want to see the Who, generally speaking. I don't know, it's just me. This is a band this is the reason I play guitar. I mean, Pete Townsend and the Who, this was my first stuff. Like, the first song I learned on electric guitar, I learned how to play a power chord and go. Oh, sorry, played it wrong. Right? That's the very first thing I played on an electric guitar one day, and I went, oh, that sounds like it. And I learned it like that, like not on the 5th and 4th strings too. I learned it up all the way up the neck, and that's the way I learned it. So that's from the beginning. It's a very important band for me. And yeah, so it was about 81 or 82. So Kenny Jones was already in the band then, and they were doing their final tour. They're still around. It's 50 years later. Not 50, 40. I'm I digress. But my point is this: that I was a fan from the beginning, and it was such a huge fan. Those V drums have no place being anywhere in the same area code as the Who. That's what I think. I think you can put a drummer behind Plexi. There's different ways to deal with it, but this is my honest opinion: is those things sound like shit. And the sound that they use with those V drums sounds like preset 01 pop drums or whatever. Like the cymbals go. You know what I'm talking? Who out there has seen the Who use those things? It's a travesty. I don't know how else to describe it. It does not sound good. So I guess I'm just going there. But in my opinion, yeah, it's and I just feel like there's not enough people that in that, it's like anything. You don't want to offend your boss or whatever. Not there's nobody in that camp that apparently will say that or something, and that's the way I feel about it. That's somebody with a vested, like, look, I don't have any dog in this fight other than I love your friggin' band, like from the beginning, like it's religious to me, and those things they don't sound good, they don't sound good. It's reminding me of another story, but about a completely different artist, but I'm not going to bring it up right now. Anyways, but I just think it's like, so that's one thing. So, Roger said he couldn't hear the drums or something. Now, by the way, I was sitting right here and I saw it go down because Zach live streamed. He went on Instagram and he had so I was sitting here working actually right at this desk, and you could see Zach there's my cat. You could see Zach, behind the drums. It was shooting out into the Royal Albert Hall. So Roger came, I was watching it, from his position and listening, and I was sitting here doing some computer editing, I think. So I was looking over at the phone occasionally and listening to them play. And it was the last song, I think. I can't even remember what song it was, but you heard it start, and then they got about halfway through. Well, okay, second to the last song, I remember looking down and seeing Roger walk over to Zach and go, like this. And I was like, oh, he must be having in-ear problems or something, And I'm sure Zach was just like, oh yeah, that's like, why am I like, how am I able to help with that, right? Because I'm the drummer, but that's a monitor guy thing. But he was obviously frustrated, maybe just expressing to him, I can't hear shit tonight or whatever. And I thought Zach would be like, oh yeah, that sucks or whatever. I thought kind of that was probably what was going on. Well, they go into the next song. And they get and it's a classic Who song, and I can't remember what it was, but they get about halfway through, and then I'm sitting here editing, and I go like, did the song just start over? And I look down at my phone, and I'm like, oh yeah. And I didn't even really realize what happened. You couldn't hear the mix very well because it was just from behind the drums, right? So, but I heard them start the song over. So then they play the song again, and the show ends, and that's it. Well, that was the incident, I guess, that was the driver of this, as far as I know. That's where that whole bad show at Albert Hall thing. And then I hear that they fired him because Roger didn't modulate the key. That's why they restarted the song, because he missed the modulation or something. And then also that he felt like Zach was overplaying, or that he couldn't hear the drums properly or something. Okay, so have you ever played on stage with V drums? Because I have. And I tell you what, it was the most bizarre experience I just remember like going, holy shit, like I can't hear the drums at all, like really. So I need drums here in my monitor, like more now. And then it never felt normal because the guys behind me playing, and you've got nothing coming from behind you. There's no acoustic sound. It's just this all coming out of a wedge in front of you. And I hated it. I was like, this is so bizarre. It was almost like going to in-ears for the first time, where you're just like, I don't know how I would ever get comfortable with this. Almost like you need side fills, maybe, or, monitors from the back playing so that it feels like there's a kit back there, like to feel comfortable. And then at that point, it's like, well, let's just use drums, right? So anyway, that's the main thing about the drums, Zach, and the whole incident with them canning him and stuff like that. That I think that I'm just like, You guys, in my opinion, it's like you guys need to get in a room and with a friggin' drum kit and figure out how to make it so that it's the right volume, but use real drums, both for the sound of your band and also for your own sanity, because there's going to be a way that you can position those drums on stage where you can feel just enough and you're not too close to them. And if you are too close to them, you can strategically place plexi in places, because cymbals are tough. And if you're going deaf, it's tough, and the drums have kind of got to be behind you. And sometimes depends on the side of the stage, but man, like I play a lot of gigs with drums and it's like, you just get them in like I'm in Classic Rock Show far enough away from Tim, the drummer, that I just have to get I've got a fair amount of drums in my wedge, but not that much really. And if I can't hear them, I can still hear him back there, without in-ears, and it's comfortable. So it's like, Tim might be here right now. He was here earlier. So it's like, I can hear him play without, and if there's times where, like he does a thing on some songs, Tim will know what I'm talking about, where he's more rim shot on the snare and it's quite loud, like, and sometimes it's like in my wedge, it's like, and on those songs, I got to get it down in my wedge because it's like, it's just a louder snare sound. But to control all that stuff, that's what plexi's for. I mean, you can put up plexi. A lot of people you'll see put up plexi just by cymbals, panels that are on stands, just to shield the impact of a cymbal going into vocal mics. You'll see it a lot like at the back of stages when you see background singers beside drums on risers, and then they'll have a plexi panel up. Maybe not the whole kit, but it'll be like just a kind of like a piece that size or something that's in front of the cymbals and kind of maybe the hi-hat or something beside the background singers, so that it doesn't get into all the vocal mics. There's ways to do it, But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's crazy, man. The Who, for a long time, I've felt like, one of the other things is just the sound of the drums and the bass in the Who, to me, are such a major factor in the band. I know that Pete was the Svengali and, writing and that Roger's voice is super important, but the other guys were, very important, like to the vibe. Just like I was talking about earlier with the drums and the bass in AC/DC, simple, yes, but like without those things, it doesn't sound right. And in many bands, I feel like that there's that appreciation for that factor that, like, well, for better, even if you're like, man, it was crazy, the volume of the bass on stage, like with Entwistle or whatever, or the drums were sometimes out of control, but that's the friggin' sound of the Who. That's the music you made, and that's what we all fell in love with. So for better or for worse, if you want it to sound like the Who, then you got to have those things and all those elements, right? Otherwise, it could be a different band. You can go do another thing where you make a different kind of music with other people. But if you're going to call it the Who, then please make it sound like the Who, Don't neuter it and then try and sell it as the Who, Because if it's like that, my honest feel is like, it's one of the most important things to me musically. The band that, set the tone for me, but I don't really want to go see it and tarnish that memory or change that memory if it's not like that. And that's the contrast with something like AC/DC. When AC/DC's up there, they got Maddie on drums because he absolutely nails, and they do not, use any of the, like V drums or anything. Can you imagine AC/DC with V drums? But I feel like it's the same. Like, can you imagine the Who with V drums? No, but yet they do it. I've said too much. No, it does drive me friggin' bonkers. And it's just like, don't neuter it and then call it the Who. That's my only point. Just let it be the Who. And if you can't, then don't do it. That's what I think. Right? Because the tickets are fucking expensive. Sorry, but it's true. It's like, it's if you're gonna spend, I bought tickets to the Hollywood Bowl show 3 years ago, something like that. And when I walked out, I was like, I don't think I'm going to go again. I'm not going to go again. And there's too many things that as a musician now, where I know what the hell's going on, you know, and I'm at that age where it's all I've thought about my whole life. And they were the thing that got me into it. But at that point, I was 10. I'm now 53. And, you know, so a lot of time has gone by and it's like all I've thought about since then. And so I understand what's happening, you know, and it's like, this is not fun for me, like hearing those things. So that's about as, I can't be more honest than that, you know. That's a mouthful. I've said too much, but you asked me the question. I had to go there. I'm just being honest, for God's sakes. Honesty is the best policy, right? Thoughts on buying Tonex one to test amps I'm considering, but don't have available locally. Yeah, I do actually think that it's something where, for instance, sound of speakers. I've grown very used to, you know, trying things in IR land and going, oh, I think I really like that speaker. Something like the blackbacks. That was my first. I didn't really know the difference between a blackback and a greenback from the early 70s or late 60s. And then I realized, oh, I think I like the blackbacks because they have they're a little brighter and a little tougher sounding or something, a little more aggressive. And so there was that. Also, like something like a 55 hertz bass cone G12M. I had no idea what that sounded like. They weren't that common, you know. So, but I was like, I think I really like that speaker, the bass cone greenback. So things like that. And then amp models for sure. Like, well, I'll give you an example of an amp. It's not exactly modeling, but like the Synergy preamp stuff. There's an angle module where I was like, ooh, this is like really cool sounding and different for like metal. It was the Savage, Angle Savage. I'm like, that is terrific sounding for, it's a different kind of sound than a Marshall sound, different enough that it'd be like, I could see having that, you know. So I definitely think that it can, modeling can, you know, to a certain degree kill amplifiers for sure. But I also think it can open up people's minds to, oh, maybe I want to get this, you know. It's a little bit of both. It's like get the real thing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Did you watch the latest Tone Talk with Pete Margolis and Brian Ranks Friday night? Those guys were amazing. No, I didn't, but I met those guys. I know the dudes, and I got to get one of those books for sure. And I know they have this I want to go over there and see what they got because the collection looks absolutely out of control. Not far from me here, so yeah. Yep. Okay. And I should watch the show. Is there going to be a singer on the next gig? What do you mean? On with Vi and Satriani? There actually is. I mean, Marco is a great singer, killer rock singer. He's the bass player. Yeah. Chris says, are there some Visatch parts that you're glad to have some time to woodshed on your break? Yeah, for sure. Anything that happens on this thing. It's great to have, you know, some time to woodshed for sure. Yeah, I basically had to learn how to play that thing. So I'm actually using that, by the way, in my video for the 2 Notes reactive load. So the new 2 Notes box. I thought I'm going to write something on this and come up with something. And so that's kind of fun. It'd be my first thing I've done a video or anything like that on 7-string. Yeah. Happy Easter, says Mark. Gonna hang for another 15 or so, and then I'm gonna split because I gotta check something out that I'm very excited about. So let's see. Have you ever replaced a truss rod? Ooh, no, I haven't. Good tech, you know, I think it can totally be done. But a new rod depends. How can you get it out? Like, can it be removed easily, or do you have to remove the fingerboard? I wonder. I'd really, you know, the only person I would probably ever trust on planet Earth to do that would be John Sir. I don't think he could do it. But you know, it's a big job. I'm sure there's some others out there that are great at it. You know, just make sure it's somebody with some experience. Yeah. I once heard Chick Corea say music is about making space. Yeah, absolutely. It's the stuff you don't play, you know, and then when you do play, the impact that it, you know, make sure that you land on a groovy interval. Yeah. The hard thing about playing AC/DC is everybody in the band has to play it right, or it almost doesn't matter what you do. That's a great way to put it, I think. Yeah, it's very important that you can't have one person be like, oh yeah, I know it, I can do it, and then they don't. It just doesn't sound good, especially if that person is the drummer. Okay. What else we got here? As a new guy trying to get brown sounds with hardly any gear, what pedals does the Boss EVH delay pedal you work with on replace? Well, it not much, to be honest. I mean, it really does the sort of later period Van Halen delay really nicely. But it's you're still going to need an amp that gets you close, So, and you sort of need to play Van Halen. You really sort of need the phaser and the flanger and an Echoplex. But the EVH delay will kind of replace the Echoplex because there's one sound in there that you can do with it but it's not really the same. Just in my opinion, if I had a pedal board for EVH, it would be flanger, phaser, Echoplex. Just like that in front of the amp. And then whatever amp you're going to use. And then however you're going to do, whether it's an effect loop or if you're going to do the post stuff, wet dry, or whatever you do, sure, the delay, if you really want to get the later tone, then you kind of got to have the pitch, which is the, micro pitch. So you could use just the Eventide micro pitch pedal for that. Now you got a Van Halen pedal board. Pretty close, And you could, even in mono, do a lot. If you want to go old school, you could use an SL68 and then do the effects with some sort of, slave post power amp situation, or you could use something like an EVH head of some sort, or something like Friedman small box or something like that with an effect loop. If you want to go stereo, we get into a different conversation, so yeah. Okay. Do you like psychedelic guitars? I had a Pink Paisley Japanese Strat that was way cool. Sure. Yeah, that's kind of fun. Why not? I like Paisley, the blue and the pink. What do I think of the Crazy Tube Circuits heat seeker pedal? Pretty cool. Yeah. Sort of, I guess an 800 or something, and a bit of boosty in a box. I did a video for it. Jack White shows are excruciatingly loud. Are they? That's interesting. I like how he puts his amps on stage. He does it like Springsteen, with the cabinets angled back and up at the, so you can have loud amps on stage and they're kind of shooting into the rafters. How do you like your Apple computer so far? Great. It's been good. No problems. Angus was running up and down the aisles. Everybody could bring coolers full of booze, and they let you bring in Hairspray for Kiss. Best show ever. Awesome. What's a good setup for a Les Paul? I'm trying to get a good out of phase sound. You just need a pickup with 4-conductor wiring, so you can flip the phase. So when you combine them, they're out. Just get a couple. You can do it with Thornbuckers. You can do it with your Abbott Seymour Duncans with 4-conductor wiring, and then just put a push-pull phase on like one of the tone pots or something. Yeah. Yamaha SG was a cross between an SG and a Les Paul with lots of brass parts, like the plate under the bridge. They were cool. They were just neat. It was a vibe. Yep. Yeah. If Apple could reduce the latency, AirPods could compete with in-ear monitors at home or live. I don't really hear, like, when I play with them I tried using the rehearsal and I was like, it works. I don't really hear that much latency. Like, I mean, playing music through them or something, I don't know about that. Pumping guitar into them, like an in-ear. But just putting them in for a little bit of sound reduction seemed to work fine. So, yeah, Zach is no longer Zach. That's true. They hired him back or whatever, like it was for a few days. And then I think they, if you want to know what I think it's like probably like Simon Townsend or something was like, "What are you doing?" Because I think he kind of is in that role a little bit these days. Like he's like kind of an MVP of all those guys, I think. But probably talk some sense, you know. Yeah. The Who just got themselves so much press, I guess. To me, it just isn't good press, but yeah. The loudest band I heard was King's X. I saw King's X a few weeks ago and they weren't that loud. It was a lot quieter than the last time I saw them. Still really enjoyed it. But when they came out, I did kind of think, oh, it's kind of quieter than I remember. I remember thinking that. And then it didn't matter. I got into it and all that. But yeah, definitely was the quietest time I've seen them. Yeah. Yeah. Some super chats I got to get. V-drums sound good in the trash. How do you keep yourself from repeating licks? I appreciate this compliment, but I feel like I repeat myself a lot. But thanks, Paul. I try and not. I'm like, there's that lick again. Like, and I hope nobody notices. But I do the same things a lot, to be honest. I feel like I need a wider vocabulary. So I appreciate you saying that because it makes me a little more confident about it, to be honest. Would be fun to see an actual head cutting segment on the upcoming Vice Hatch tour with all three of you. That'd be fun. I'd be scared shitless, but you know. I'm strangely I'm having a lot of fun with the interplay. Like, I mean, it's not strange, but I feel great playing with those guys. Like, I feel like really like I'm having fun, and I'm just glad about. I didn't know how I was going to feel about it because I thought, I wonder if what's going to happen. I think I talked about that before, but actually doing it was like just a pure. I don't know. It's joy for me, man, because it's like really. This is so cool. You know what I mean? That's the way I feel about it. Like it's like just up. It's I can't quite describe it. Doesn't even feel real yet. You know, feels very. It's not like it's yeah. It's just a little surreal, but very enjoyable. So great for me to feel that thing and just be. I don't know. It's not lost on me. I feel very very lucky. Yeah. Okay. What else? When Zach got fired, first thing I thought is the V-drums did it. I don't think it was his choice. I mean, to play V-drums. I really don't. I think it was kind of dictated that we're going to do this because, you know, we need to control the stage volume was probably I think that was I mean, as far as I know, you know. But it's like there's other ways to do that with real drums really well, you know. So, okay, I guess it was 77. All he could hear were the drums. All he could hear were the drums. Yeah, that's what I heard as well, that the drums were way too loud and then he got confused and he didn't modulate and all that. But that's monitor guy stuff, isn't it? Because it's an electronic drum kit that doesn't make any sound. So if the drums are loud and kind of crazy like Keith Moon, it's not his fault, you know. My argument would be the thing that sucks with V drums, and like I said, my first experience with when I tried to play the band with them is I was totally reliant on the monitor guy now because there's no drum sound. So it's like it has to come out of that wedge and be just right. And I'm so used to being able to mix myself by walking over to the drum kit when I need to hear a little more hi-hat. That's the thing that I hate with in-ears as well. Can't really do that, you know. It's just whatever volume it's at. You're reliant on the monitor guy. I really don't like that. I love being on a stage and being able to hear everybody's dynamics. And if I need a little more, I can just walk over to them. Very comfortable for me. It's like so natural, and the problem is solved instantly. Shit, I can't quite hear the hat. Now I'm good. And you don't even think about it. You just do it naturally. I need more, I get closer. And when you don't have that all of a sudden, or if it's just way too loud and you can't get away, you know, imagine if it was way too loud and it was wedges, or if it was whatever, because that happens to me. Sometimes I'm on a stage and there's a wedge and it's like, God, it's something's really loud in the wedge. I just walk away from the wedge. Now I'm fine. So this is technical bullshit, you know, that's like, shouldn't be a thing that gets somebody fired, or it's, if anything, it's the fault of the monitor person. Like, I can't hear the drums, and he's probably playing something, this song before, where it was quiet and Roger needed drums, and he's like, give me more, and then it's like he gives him more, and then now he plays full volume and it's way too much, and something that simple. But that's the kind of stuff where if it's a real drum kit, it's just, you just gauge your place on stage with it, Like, I just wish we could stop trying to reinvent the wheel with all this stuff and make it harder than it needs to be. I started off the show by saying I'm logical, like Spock. That's I can't get away from it. It's just like, I played with several drummers who use V drums, says Arthur, and I hated it. I hated that sound in my wedge. Yeah, I hate it too. I don't like it. Like, it sucks, It sucks. It's not that the V drums suck. It's that you're trying to do something that's almost impossible, which is recreate an acoustic instrument with electronics. It's not even like using an amp modeler, because a guitar amp runs through electronics and speakers, right? It's like trying to recreate an acoustic guitar with electronics, like on a piano, with a sample. It doesn't sound right, and that to me is like V drums. It's like, it's an acoustic instrument, for Christ's sakes, that doesn't, like, the cymbals, the way they decay, and it's got nothing to do with amps and stuff. It's the drums is the one thing that's always acoustic on stage. I mean, unless you're using, samples or whatever type sounds, that's a different thing. But the sound of an acoustic drum set, which is who doesn't have anything to do with samples and all that stuff, is intrinsic. Like, it's just so core, and it's like, you mess that up, it's like, I don't know. Yeah. It just doesn't work. It's like you might as well be playing the intro to Behind Blue Eyes on a keyboard, the guitar part. It's that weird. All right. Except worse, because the drums are a much louder instrument, and the way that we're all used to hearing that is, yeah. Yeah. Zach is the closest to Moon that they'll ever have. Yeah, he's fantastic. Man, I saw the Who with Entwistle in like 2000, like the year before he passed away, 2000 or 2001, right before he passed away. I saw them here in California at what was then Verizon Wireless Amphitheater. I remember walking in. It was a great show. I walked in kind of late as they were starting to play, and they played I Can't Explain. It stopped me in my tracks, man. It was like, and that sounded like the Who, with Zach, but they were full. But I remember the show like it was a great show, like it was yesterday. And yeah, he sounded like, it was like he was totally honoring Keith Moon back then. It was great. And then we kind of went, awry. So, how would you describe the clean channel of a PT-15 in relation to a deluxe? Yeah, not far off. It's not quite as scooped and sparkly. It's a little more, it's got, ample, clear high end and everything, but it's a little more veering in the direction of a neutral clean than a deluxe, which to me, the classic deluxe sound is a little more Fender scooped. Not worlds apart. It's still a Fender kind of circuit. Yeah. When I saw you with Fight for Fighting, Randy's drums were perfect. He pounds on those drums with crushes. And we probably had plexi, right? Because Randy plays with, because John sits right in front of him with the piano and stuff. And so I think when you saw us, we had Al doing sound, and Al likes the plexi and stuff. So I think we had the screens up then. Fine, right? I mean, I don't particularly like plexi, and I kind of like bleed into vocal mic stuff, but I get it. I get that John's, it's a singer-songwriter thing a little bit more, and that requires a little more, but yeah, it's great, right? Like, and Randy's one of the best drummers. This is Randy Cook, one of the best drummers out there. Absolutely fantastic. He plays very dynamically. So, okay, another 5 minutes, and I'm going to split. Yeah. Daltrey expressed frustration on stage during the show, which I saw, right? Clearly on Zach's phone camera, saying he was having difficulty hearing because all I've got is drums going boom, boom, boom. I can't sing to that. I'm sorry, guys. Well, that's just monitor stuff, so they fired the wrong guy, and not to say, I mean, I'm not trying to throw the monitor guy under the bus. It's probably just, like I say, like it was it is monitor stuff, but it's probably like he needed more drums, and then he got more drums, and then it was too much drums, and all that shit could be solved by just getting rid of all this electronics and, and just making the just, you know what I mean? It's crazy. I don't know. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Without that original rhythm section, it wasn't the same after Moon died. Yeah, I mean, AC/DC doesn't have the original rhythm section right now, but it sounds pretty great, And I would even argue that the rhythm section is the driving force at this point, because the other guys can kind of be on top of it. I mean, Angus is killer and he's way on top. I mean, the volume and everything, but the core of Stevie and Matt and now Chris Chaney playing those songs so perfectly with the correct intention and tones and the whole 9 yards. Because literally Stevie's got the right guitar, super bass, Matt's playing the drums. It sounds exactly like the friggin' records, and Chris is honoring the parts and playing exactly like the records, and it sounds perfect. If you watch any of the shows live, I mean, and tell me it's not the glue, the absolute core foundation is so powerful, so you can do that. It doesn't have to be, nobody can play. I mean, I said it earlier, nobody can play exactly like anyone else, but Zach does a great job of doing the Keith Moon thing, and in Bassland, one of my best friends is the bass player, and he does an amazing job, and I would argue if you can't, I get it. It's loud bass on stage. It's insane. Like it's like, if you can't hear and stuff, it can be very difficult with a bass player like Entwistle. But you can get those tones still and fully support that in the PA at least, because even there's enough stuff these days. Even, I'm sitting here looking at my Geddy Lee bass preamp right here. I love that thing for that kind of dirty, you can get that aggression and all that stuff if you want it, you know what I mean? In the sound, just let that happen, because they've got the musicians. That's not the problem. They have the people now, just let it shine would be my, let it shine. So, and honor the songs and what it was that you created. If you're going to call it The Who, be The Who, for fuck's sakes, Sorry, this is like really important to me. It's like very religious to me. This is about all I think about my whole life, and The Who was a big part of it. So, yeah, a big part of it. Okay. As a new guy, I already answered that question about the EVH pedal. I got to split you guys pretty quick here. So, enjoying the show, says Peter. 30,000 feet, I think you mean, on an Air Canada flight to Toronto. That's awesome. Videos this week. So the 2 Notes load box, it's called the Reload 2. Got a video coming for that. I got to get some done for a bunch of other stuff as well. I put out a little video for the Woodrow plugin. It's just a short. I'll put it up as a short on YouTube. I meant as a reel. I did it already on Instagram, but I'll put it up on YouTube too, maybe later today as a short. It's just a little demonstration of using their Woodrow plugin, also combined with the Galaxy Echo and their waterfall rotary speaker, I think it's called, which sounds really great. Those 3 together are a really nice combo. So I'll put that up on YouTube. But yeah, I've got to get to some different pedal videos and stuff like that too. Headrush Prime I've got here, and I got to set aside a few days to make a video for that, because that is probably a 3 or 4 day affair, I would think. So got to do that. Got a bunch of stuff coming before I leave again to go on tour. At least probably like 10 videos, before I got to go away. So all kinds of stuff. Listen, I'm going to split, but I love you all. You're all fantastic. Thanks for listening to me rant. I know it was an endless rant about The Who. I'm glad that you're all willing to entertain that. Just looking through the last few comments here. Who's at the end here? Let's see. Andy. What's Andy say? The pinnacle was the Join Together tour. Simon Phillips. Yeah. I kind of liked Zach, to be honest. In 2000, 2001, that tour I saw, I thought he was more Moon. I mean, Simon's a legend, but he's his own man, He's a little like Pino playing bass. Pino's a legend. I mean, he's incredible. But when Pino played in The Who, I was like, I sort of didn't understand the choice, because he's so different. He's so smooth and dark. The tone is like, it's a very different thing. very, very different. Not just he's a legend, you know. Simon's a legend. They're like, you know, it's just a different thing. So I like Zach because I thought, sort of return to, you know, form or whatever of what made the song. Because ultimately it's those songs people want to go. It's the nostalgia aspect. People want to go and feel like they did when they heard it with Keith Moon or whatever, and that impact and the bombastic and the way it worked was. I mean, there's no better example of chemistry than the Who. 4 individuals that, you know, you can't change one thing out or it just doesn't sound the same. Well, it's like Led Zeppelin or the Beatles. You can't change one thing out. It doesn't quite work the same anymore, you know? So anyway, I just, the Beatles, the Stones, Led Zeppelin, and the Who. To me, those are the Beatles, the Stones, Led Zeppelin, and the Who, right? And it's like if we think about honoring, obviously people passed away and stuff and whatever, you know, but if we think about honoring feel and aspects of the sounds of those bands, right? I feel like Zeppelin was, you know, obviously with Jason there, the one show they did again in 2008, Celebration Day. You know, Beatles literally like, oh, we're going to go back and use John's demos to try and recreate, you know, some of this magic or something, you know, Real Love and Free as a Bird and those songs. And then the last one that came out, you know, obviously a lot of like paying tribute to the sound of the chemistry of the thing, right? You know, very, very important. And then the Who, I feel like they've approached it a little bit differently, which is this Roger and Pete, we are the band sort of thing. Page and Plant tried to do it in the 90s, called it Page and Plant, and had other guys playing bass and drums. And then when they finally Rock and Roll or whatever, the Kennedy Center, was it Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I can't remember. When they get inducted, and then John Paul Jones shows up and goes, "Oh, I'm glad my friends remembered my phone number." A good point, right? Because it wasn't Zeppelin, you know. It's not the same without John Paul Jones, a major part. So to me, you know, so there's a little bit of that in Zeppelin, but then they totally honored it in 2008 and got as close as they probably could, you know, with the spirit of Jason being there in the shoes of his father. I like that it was a classy way to do it. And then, you know, Sabbath, right? Doing this last show, whatever it's going to end up being. I don't know how much Ozzy's going to sing, but it's a beautiful way to go about doing it. Have a bunch of other bands there, you know, that you influenced, and the 4 guys going to be there and everything. It's fantastic. Can't wait to see what they do. And now with the Who, I feel like we've kind of not, like, the spirit. It's just it's a different thing the way they've done it. And I really do think it's like that. I think it's like the Beatles, the Stones, Led Zeppelin, the Who, as far as those bands from that era, maybe in that order, or maybe it's the Who, Led Zeppelin, whatever, you know. But and I just everything that created that should be honored. That's just my opinion. I don't know. Anyways. It's gotten ridiculous, says Jonathan. I'm getting ridiculous, so I'm going to go now. Everybody, have a great week, and thanks so much for being here. Appreciate you all. Love you all as always, and we'll see you next time. Take care.